Please rewind this cassette.
Hey guys, Pat here. So I'm going to talk about this whole Gone with the Wind being removed from HBO Max. Well, temporarily being removed from HBO Max. They said they're going to put the movie back up with some text at the beginning that gives historical context for why the film is supposedly racist. If you haven't seen Gone with the Wind, which I think a lot of people today actually haven't seen this movie, even though it's the highest grossing film of all time when you adjust ticket price inflation. It was directed by Victor Fleming. He also did The Wizard of Oz, which I actually think is the film that should have won Best Picture that year, but at the time Wizard of Oz was actually a financial bomb and got mixed reviews. I'll be honest, I've never liked Gone with the Wind. I think it's a pretty overrated, overwrought, and just overall, well, that's 3 overs in a row. I'm overdoing it myself. I just don't like it. I don't like the acting. I think it's boring. I think the pacing is kind of crappy. I thought that when I was a kid. I don't really like it as a teenager. I don't like it now. I watched it a few years ago and it was hard to set through. I mean, great actors are in it. Clark Gable, Vivien Leigh. It was the first film to ever award an African American an Oscar. Best Supporting Actress for, Jesus, I can't even think of her name right now off the top of my head. I used to know this stuff, but I'm a little bit less of a movie trivia snob like I used to be. Let me look that name up real quick, just for respect reasons. Hattie McDaniel was the first African American to ever win an Oscar. But if you like the movie, I don't want to crap on you. I know a lot of people do. I've gotten in several arguments with close friends of mine, and a lot of female friends in particular that love this movie. And, I'm like everyone else. I like the frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn part. It's a nice looking movie, beautiful color, great score, some memorable lines of dialogue. But, I would probably give it like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. I don't think it's a masterpiece. I don't think it's one of the greatest films of all time. However, I have to say, this is a really scary thing in a lot of ways, because I know that everyone's like, why do you guys all care so much? What's the big deal if they take it off HBO Max? Like, who gives a fuck? Well, the only thing I would say about that is that if streaming services are the future of entertainment, right? Like, if you want to watch a movie or a television show, you have to, get on your Roku, your Chromecast, what have you, and watch something on Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu. The issue becomes, if they start to take things off, or they start to decide what is appropriate or non-appropriate, depending on whatever is politically correct at the time, then they're going to take away a lot of these things, these media products that we love, these television shows and movies. And they've done this before, where they changed the soundtrack to something. Like, it's hard to find the original soundtrack for shows like The Wonder Years because they didn't have rights for streaming a DVD. They just had rights for television reruns, or something like WKRP in Cincinnati, China Beach. A lot of these shows have issues with that. And I'm really scared about this because I think myself at one point, who had a lot of physical media, I used to have like 3,000 DVDs plus and like several hundred Blu-rays, and I started scaling it down because it sort of got a hoarding aspect to it. I'm like, I don't need all these fucking DVDs everywhere. And also, you can just stream everything, and you can stream most things in 1080p. So there's no reason to like have a huge like video collection. Plus, it's a pain in the ass to look through your movies and put it in your Blu-ray player. But this makes a good argument for physical media, because even though they're going to put the movie back on, I don't want to watch this movie with some text at the beginning that gives me historical context for why it's racist. Why would people need that? Wouldn't people realize that an 81-year-old movie isn't modern? Wouldn't anyone with just any rational thought or like critical thinking skills know that a movie that's this old isn't going to be up to par with where we are today politically? I mean, it's a no-brainer. And I also don't think this movie had this huge demand, although I guess now it's a huge hit on Amazon Prime after HBO Max removed it temporarily. Also, isn't that what Google's for? Like, maybe you watch the movie and it makes you uncomfortable, so you Google and you read about it on Wikipedia, IMDb, what have you, and you're like, okay, now this makes a little bit more sense to me. I also don't think the film is pro-racism, and I never got that sense, and I don't think it's like pro the Confederacy, but people seem to read it that way. I think it's an anti-war movie. This is what you always hear with Birth of a Nation, that they should burn every copy of that racist movie. And it is a very racist movie. There's no question about it. But everyone's always like, burn every copy of it, destroy that piece of garbage. And I'm like, yeah, but this film is very significant, like for narrative and cinema, making an epic, a lot of filmmaking techniques. It makes me uncomfortable to watch it too. I've only seen it a couple times because it's like 3 fucking hours long and it's a silent film. You know, and it's not Metropolis where I'm just like in awe of like, how did he pull this off? But you know, you still have to be like, hey, it's important, and we can't fight the fact that there used to be racism in our art and our media. Like, I don't like this idea that is coming to America, which other countries have done around the world, where you destroy everything that has a negative connotation to it. You have to destroy everything that's in a museum. You have to just censor everything that's associated with something uncomfortable. Because if you just destroy it, then it's like it never existed. And then people don't have to face the fact that this thing used to exist that was really bad. And that we have grown from that bad thing. But when you just destroy it, it's like it never even happened or something. So then 50 years from that point, nobody even knows that it existed. And people think that's a better world to live in. But I don't think that's a better world to live in, because actual history is very uncomfortable. It's not all sugar-coated like it is maybe in your, you know, your schoolroom. Like, it's a very uncomfortable thing what's happened through history. But also the profound thing is that, you know, we don't act that same way anymore. Or at least to the same extent. So I don't like that. But the main thing I'm getting at is that if, you know, we live in a world where Facebook and Google and Twitter and everyone has a monopoly on entertainment and even on sales, and now with everything being shut down. I tried to go to a coffee shop today, and every coffee shop in my city still isn't open. You can't go sit in a local coffee shop. So I had to end up going to Starbucks. And I'm like, I don't want to go to Starbucks. I want to support a local business, but they're not opening back up. And it's a really scary idea, because it's like, if all of these major companies online run everything, they get to decide what you see and you don't see. YouTube gets to decide whose content is worthy and not worthy. I got a copyright strike recently for having an image in one of my thumbnails that belonged to a movie company, which every movie review and everything I've ever seen uses thumbnails from the movie. I just used like the poster for this movie, and I got a copyright strike, and if I get 2 more of those, I lose my channel. It's that kind of crap. It's like, this is ridiculous. Like, the poster is marketing. What else am I supposed to use? Like, I was talking about that movie. So if they say Gone with the Wind is racist and insensitive, and this all came about because John Ridley, the writer of 12 Years a Slave, An Undercover Brother, and American Crime, wrote this big essay about how the film was racist and made him uncomfortable. And I'm a fan of the guy. I really like 12 Years a Slave, An Undercover Brother. I think he's a good writer. He won an Oscar. It's like, dude, really? You're gonna go after Gone with the fucking Wind, of all things to talk about? Like, really? Like, why don't you write an essay about how Moonlight is overrated and doesn't capture homosexuality? It's a film made by a straight male trying to show you what homosexuality is like in the African American community. Like, Bret Easton Ellis attacked the movie on that. Instead, you go after a movie that all of us know is old and a little bit outdated, and a movie that I don't think a lot of people really like anymore. I mean, I don't like it, and I know a lot of other people don't like it anymore. Like, is this The Hill to Die On, Gone with the Wind? How is this at all relevant to everything that's going on right now? But I don't want to get too political with this. I just want to say, buy your physical media, because then you can have the Blu-ray of the movie, you can have the DVD of the movie, and you can still watch it whenever you want. It doesn't have to have some fucking text at the beginning telling you that you have to feel bad for enjoying this movie. Because if you like this movie, I don't give a shit. You have the right to feel that way. And John Ridley has this whole thing where he says we have to be able to discuss the morality of art and all that. It's like, well, dude, people have discussed the morality and the themes of this movie. I doubt there's few movies in history that have as many essays written about them as Gone with the Wind. All of this stuff has been discussed before. I've had many conversations about this movie. So I don't even know what he's talking about. Like, I saw something in this movie that nobody ever noticed before. Like, get the fuck off your hill, you know, your soapbox or whatever. Like, it's so pretentious. It's so ridiculous. I mean, it's like, dude, this is, at the end of the day, this is just an entertaining, grand epic from the 30s. That's all it is. It's just an old Hollywood classic. And I don't think it holds up very well. I think Casablanca holds up very well. I think Citizen Kane holds up very well. I think movies like Dr. Zhivago hold up pretty well. Although Lawrence of Arabia, last time I watched it, wasn't as great as I remember. But that's what it is. But yeah, if they're gonna censor the things, like I'm just so worried that Netflix is gonna say we're not playing this movie because it makes people uncomfortable in the LGBT community, or YouTube is gonna say this kind of content cannot be on this platform, or Twitter is gonna say tweets like this can't be on here, and it just seems ridiculous to me. Like, why do that when this is supposed to be the internet? We're supposed to be able to have access to everything that we've ever wanted to listen to and watch. And that would be amazing, but instead you're saying that this thing is bad now, and you're wrong for even watching it, and I have to write an essay. And I know that they didn't take it off permanently, and they brought it back with the text, but it all just seems arbitrary to me. I guess to wrap this up, I'll find some kind of analogy here. I'll tell a little bit of a story. When I was a kid, my father was like very caring about animals. Like, he had a real sensitive spot for animals, and I was very scared of animals that I didn't understand, that in my head were dangerous, like snakes and spiders, insects in general, anything poisonous that could be poisonous, just scared the hell out of me. So one time in my house there was a poisonous spider. I don't remember what kind of spider it was, but it was a poisonous spider, and my father put it in a jar. And he gave it to me, and he said, take this outside, put it on the ground, let the spider go, but be careful. So I go outside with the jar, and I'm freaked out about it. I'm really scared of the spider because I'm just like a kid. I'm not even a teenager yet. And I put the jar down on the ground, and the spider won't crawl out of the jar. So I'm shaking the jar, trying to get the spider to come out. And I keep shaking it. And I'm like, come out already, damn it. Like, come out. And then, I mean, I hate to say it, but like, I don't know if I shook too hard or what happened, but the spider like just kind of quit moving. And then it sort of fell out of the jar, and I didn't want to touch it. And I stood there a while. And, I thought maybe I was too rough with it, and I think it died, I don't really know, and I went in and I didn't tell my father, because I knew it would upset him so much, because he really cared about, like, animals. And I guess I would say if you're scared of something, or if you fear something and it makes you uncomfortable, the thing to do, the thing not to do is to shake it, to be scared of it, to be fearful of it, to not be gentle with it, to not consider it. Don't kill the spider.